All right.
Here we are, episode 30.
Yes, sir. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Ending November, about to start last month of the year.
Yep.
The year's gone by quickly.
It has.
30 shows have gone by quickly.
Yep. Great responses from our last show.
Yeah.
Lots of good feedback. We will definitely be doing more guests in 2024. Excited about getting them all booked, but we've reached out to a couple of really great guests already who have said yes, so we just got to get them scheduled. I was looking at the show notes that you pulled together for today, and what a week it's been out there in the world.
Yeah. I mean, it's usually over a holiday, Thanksgiving is kind of quiet coming back, but it wasn't quiet this week. Lots going on.
So we had the passing of Rosalind Carter.
Yeah.
First Lady, and with the passing of Charlie Munger.
I know.
And then we had the passing of Henry Kissinger. And I think what's incredible about all three is late 90s and then 100.
Yeah.
So no early passings there, but all three icons, two of those in the government and one, potentially one of the greatest investors of all time that we don't actually refer to as the greatest investor of all time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think all three really had a huge impact on the last century.
Especially America.
And, yeah. And it's just, it's sad, and it's also kind of a change in the guard. Like that whole class of really important people in the 70s, 80s, 90s, where they were really kind of deciding a lot for America, they're no longer with us anymore.
Yeah. I've been certainly reflecting a lot lately on, I think, our generation, Generation X, the fact that we are in that window where our giants are passing away. And it's the weirdest thing to sort of realize that people aren't just passing away, but like your generation of giants. Yeah. The ones
the people you grew up looking up to.
Yeah, right. Are passing away. And I think this is the part of the midlife crisis that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. People talk about, he's on a motorcycle or he's getting a convertible or, any one of those silly things that kind of is meant to say that you wish you were young again. And maybe that's part of it, but I think it's much more the inevitable sense of mortality that sort of just descends upon you because your giants begin to pass away.
Yeah, it's definitely makes me realize my own mortality. It always also, I think, makes me realize that our generation X has to begin to step up.
Yeah.
And the role models that we all learned from, I don't think that template works in today's world. And one of the things I like about this podcast is that it forces me to think through all of this news coming at me faster than I'm really am comfortable absorbing, but I have to figure it out.
Yep.
But the landscape is shifting. The geopolitical landscape is shifting. Technology world shifting. The healthcare environment's shifting. And there's not a good template just to pull out. We have to sort of invent it for ourselves, which is kind of daunting. It's it's exciting, but also there's a lot of daunting aspects of it.
Agree. All right. So with that, let's jump in. All right, starting with a story about the Bureau of Economic Analysis that did a update to the GDP growth number for Q3 and found that it wasn't in the high fours. It was actually in the low fives.
Yeah. Yeah, they revised GDP up.
Yeah.
Which is great news. I mean, this entire story is great news. GDP was up, and then the monthly inflation thing, not CPI, but PCE, which is the personal consumption expenditure, it's related to inflation, was down slightly. And so all good news. the story is written as positive. The Fed is likely done. Maybe we're in a soft landing, Goldilocks kind of news article. And I'm hopeful. All the data seems really positive. There's something like in the back of my head that just makes me a little nervous to like call it over and say we're in the clear. So yeah. I'm still a little bit cautious, but the news is all good.
Yeah, I mean, the news that came out of the BEA really showed the strength of corporate America. Wall Street, stock market back. We're going to run through some numbers here shortly about some of the big healthcare companies. But clearly, our economy is doing great, but it's because of certain shifts that it's made, and there's still some dislocation that needs to bear out. I think in particular, we have not yet seen what is going to go down around corporate real estate. I'm seeing people in the corporate real estate space look really stressed when I see them in person.
Yeah, just around town.
Yeah. Right. When I talk to people in corporate real estate, they look really stressed. Mm-hmm. They don't look like they're having a good time. They don't look like the economy is doing well for them. And I'm now actually starting to hear them talk about the debt burden, how a lot of their terms are up for renewal, and they're going to be rewritten, and the debt servicing numbers are really challenging, and the capital markets are still closed. I think that's one thing that if you're in the private markets, you view the economy a little bit differently because you're still looking at how the capital markets are moving. And as we've been talking about for 29 plus episodes now, the private market capital is not flowing yet. So it's nice that the stock market is starting to turn and rip, but it has not come down to the private markets. And so there still might be some more bankruptcies, some more dislocation to come, and we'll see what those impacts are.
Yeah, and we were talking about this earlier in several episodes ago. The indexes, S&P 500, for instance, it really is 7 names that are carrying the entire growth of the index for the whole year. So if you pull out those 7 names, which are largely, I think they're all tech, the big tech companies.
Except for Berkshire.
Yeah. It looks like the index is great. But then when you go
below
that, I mean, there's 493 other companies.
Right.
They are all combined, they're down for the year. So I think the stock market is never the exact same as the Main Street economy because it's wealthier people that have assets in the stock market. And I don't know if the regular folks' paychecks are keeping up with inflation, even though inflation is coming down. It's cumulative. So it hasn't gone negative. So you're still getting slight price increases. And I don't know that payrolls are keeping up with that, but it's on the net. It's good, and the Fed seems to be doing a good job pulling it back fairly slowly. There hasn't been anything that's really broken yet. I think real estate is a huge risk factor, and we're benefiting from the technology, which is great, and I'm glad we have it as a country. But it's not evenly distributed.
No. I mean, if the rates don't come down, there are going to be parts of the economy that are going to be broken for a sustainable amount of time. So this is all good news to me insofar as it actually leads to rates coming down in the first half of 2024. Then I would see it as good news. I mean, otherwise it's fine. But as you said, that concentration in the stock market, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And we're about to move into a consolidation story right now, right? The big healthcare news of the week is the announcement that Cigna and Humana are working on a merger. What was it, 2 weeks ago that the news about Cigna spinning off HealthSpring?
Their
MA business, and we're going to do a deep dive on MA here very shortly with Emily Evans from Hedgeye, because there's a lot of stuff happening in the MA space, and it really deserves its own entire episode to really dig into what's going on.
Huge changes in how CMS is running the MA program.
Yeah, big time. But this, this kind of makes sense and makes sense of the HealthSpring spinoff, right?
Yeah, right.
Because anytime this kind of merger is going to happen, the two parties, and they're as big as these two are. One is in the $8 billion range, one's in the $6 billion range from a market cap perspective.
Yeah.
You got to start spinning stuff off, right? If you want to get the deal done, you got to start spinning stuff off.
Right.
And obviously, HealthSpring would have been the key asset to spin off. Although there's likely going to be other assets that the two parties will have to consider spinning off, probably especially in the drug space.
Yeah, I mean, you had an inkling of this when they spun it off. I don't know if we did it on the air because it wasn't confirmed things, but you knew this was maybe on the agenda.
Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense to me. Like Cigna is really strong on the commercial book, ASO with businesses that are self-insured, and Humana is almost a pure play Medicare Advantage platform. So they're very complementary together. I'm sure the regulators will look at it because anything this size they're going to look at. But it's hard for me to see how with HealthSpring now spun off, there's not a lot of
overlap.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much that I can see that you would have a problem with, really. And honestly, it is
other than the pure size.
Just the pure size. Yeah.
Right.
But
then you have to say, okay, but
there's other
much
bigger groups. And so I think it's actually healthy to have some consolidation so that we have a group of large payers that are multidisciplinary. They're all doing healthcare delivery too now. And I think it's a good combination. I'm excited about it.
I think what's really interesting about this is that Humana is almost certainly the best MA business.
Yes. Very well run.
Period.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can make a case that Cigna is the strongest employer.
I think they are.
Based insurance company as well. So there's and Cigna has the Evernorth business line. So they've got their health services data play
they
in
have
place.
A good sized PBM.
Yep. Yeah. Express Scripts. Yep. And Humana's got the Centerwell asset in place. So this is actually a fairly high quality merger, I would say, where I'm not sure that 1 + 1 just equals 2. It really could be a
I think that's right.
A very value creating merger.
But
just because of the quality of the assets, right? It's not just the size, but Humana being like the de facto MA business out there, right? So I at least want to give a shout out to the advisory board. Of all the data sources that we look at, they're one that we study, and I thought they did a great review in a very short time on the Cigna and the Humana merger. So we'll put this in the show notes. Don't need to say too much about it other than they do a good job of framing up the overall health insurance business in America. They basically say that there's 6 players in the space. And that so the 6 players that they point to: UnitedHealthcare, CVS, Aetna, Elevance, Cigna, Humana, and Centene.
Right.
And so if you merge Cigna and Humana, now you're at 5. UHC far and away the leader. CVS sort of right behind it from a revenue perspective, at least. And then Cigna Humana would be the third. Then they would come in and they would be the third. And again, they'd be a pretty high quality third in that game. So it's a big play.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. And I think a really interesting combination. And then when I look at these remaining 5 platforms, right? I mean, UHG is its own thing. We're going to talk about that in a minute. It's huge and really well run in a lot of areas.
The winner. I mean, look, until someone takes it from them, the winner.
And Humana and Cigna combining gives them a chance to compete.
That's right.
CVS Aetna they have their own strategy. They have a much bigger retail presence, which has advantages, has some negatives too. Elevance is really the blues. I mean,
and not even, right? I mean,
not even all the blues.
That's right.
But that's their path, or that's their niche. And Centene is really strong on the government side. If you take Humana and combine it, they're the last pure play Medicare, Medicaid.
I know, but I
platform.
do feel like a lot of what I hear about Centene lately is just them getting dinged left and right with all the changes that are happening, at the CMS level. So, and I'm not sure, does Centene have a proper Optum, health services business of scale and of note?
Not of scale. They may have something.
I'm sure they have something, but
not even as big as like Evernorth, which is Cigna's.
Right.
It's not even that developed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Elevance, at least, as we covered a couple episodes ago, has Carelon, and that's developing pretty nicely. And, they need to add more of the state blues to the platform overall to get sort of the scale from a membership perspective. But, that's
what I meant. That's
pretty
their
rapidly
path to sort of buy and partner with blues plans.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, look, check this advisory board story out, or their take. It's not really a story, but their analysis of the deal. I think they do a really good job of framing it all up. And of course, the deal is going to have to get through the FTC, right? So obviously this is sending all sorts of bells off in Lena Khan's office. And, I think their default stance is going to be no, but they're going to have to, the burden of proof is going to be on them.
They have to
block
show how it is hurting competition.
Anti-competitive, right?
And it's hard for me to see where that case comes.
Yeah, and they have to show that on the heels of the news that didn't really get covered this week because of the Cigna and Humana merger news, which is UHG had their investor day this week.
Yeah, so they had their investor day yesterday. So this was the biggest story we were going to cover until today, because Cigna and Humana came out today.
Right.
I mean, that
timing, by the way, probably not an accident.
Yeah, right. I think that's right. Listen, UnitedHealth Group is very strong on they're firing all cylinders. They're just really good and impressive. And they really have sort of built out all the different pieces. Optum is, everyone knows UnitedHealth Group insurance side is strong. But Optum has been the growth engine that's just incredible scale. They have 90,000 docs on salary. So they already were the number one
Probably
employer.
The equivalent in tech workers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean that's the part to me is like the docs is super impressive. But my God, they are a tech company.
Yeah.
Optum is a tech and data company.
Yeah. That's and it's pretty well integrated together. It works. And what I was impressed, I didn't bring the stats, but Optum has a lot of payer clients that are not UHG. They have selling services and also learning from all the other payers.
Totally.
So it's just a huge advantage.
They own advisory board.
Yeah, they own advisory board. They own Change Healthcare. They own Patients Like Me. They own a whole bunch of assets. They own NaviHealth. They own a bunch of things.
That's right. And it is worth just pointing out their revenue hit. So Vic, you found this, so I'll let you share the result.
They published it. I had to do the math. I think I did it 4 different times.
Yeah, just to make sure
I didn't believe it. They brought in $400 billion in revenue last year. No, this is the outlook for next year.
Yeah,
$400 billion for next year, and then the profits, so earnings, is $35.5 billion. So the numbers are just staggering. It's a huge and really well run operation, and they're very transparent. And they had their investor day on the internet. I'm nothing special. I just went on and watched it. It's just open.
And I think, if I'm chief legal for Cigna and Humana, I just sort of point to this.
This is like Exhibit 1.
I point to this, and I point to Change Healthcare, and I point to LHC, and I just sort of say, we're so small compared to the leader. Like, we're so small compared to the leader.
I think there's a case to be made that actually having a strong number 2 and number 3 is beneficial to market competition.
Yeah, I would agree. And really, CVS is very, very comparable in terms of revenue size, but the makeup of their business is not that comparable. Yeah. Whereas what Cigna and Humana would combine, put together, would actually be very analogous to what UHG has put together, like the design of the platform, not really having these retail drugstore storefronts and stuff like that. It's just a much more similar business model. And so I think you're right. I think they do become third overall in the sort of payer landscape in the United States, but probably the close second competitor in terms of business model and approach to the market with two high quality insurance brands.
Right. And I mean, I think CVS has done a really good job navigating from where they were 5 or 10 years ago to where they are now.
Oh, so excellent navigation.
But I think the future trajectory, even though the combination of Cigna and Humana would be slightly smaller, I think they're positioned really well to be a good alternative.
Agree. So now that we've talked about the payers, we need to circle back to some provider stuff that we kind of got lost in because of all the AI stuff that popped up, and we just kind of stopped talking about healthcare for a minute. But something really big was announced from CMS in early November, which was they finalized the physician payment rule. And why is it big? Well, it's big because there is a decrease in the rates for physicians, a decrease of 3.4% from the last year.
Yeah, and it's not clear to me how they calculate that, but I think it's going to apply pressure to physicians, obviously. I mean, we're in a high inflation environment, and decreasing the physician payment schedule, it seems a challenge.
And what's I think what's, of course, they're not going to lead with a headline that says CMS finalizes physician payment rule and decreases the rates by 3.4%. So they lead talking about that they're advancing health equity. And as you look further into the press release, you see a lot of stuff around them creating codes in the social determinants of health space, adding payment models for community health workers, pretty big expansion around behavioral health, and just a lot of the things that fit into kind of community-based care, value-based care that could work in the maybe Medicare shared savings program in an ACO model in partnership with different community organizations, right? So still coordinated care, but not full risk capitation, right? So it's almost like CMS is pulling the reins back a little bit on giving so much opportunity through the Medicare Advantage model and saying, no, we're going to dial in the codes. We're going to be very, very thoughtful about the codes. And at the same time, we're recognizing that, we're having an explosion of older people. We need to start funding caregivers. So there's a pretty big section in there around making sure that caregivers, whether they be in the family or a third party, that we have a way to fund the need we're going to have for the growth of caregivers in America. And then the behavioral health, including behavioral health in Medicare, I think for the first time ever.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So it's not simply taking the cash away from physicians, it's sort of redistributing and rebalancing the scales and saying healthcare is not just going to be physician centric. We're going to spread the love and make sure that all these other really important parts of the care continuum are funded by the government.
Yeah, I think that's right. They are, and we've talked about this a lot, the system has to move away from pure fee-for-service to more of a value-based, capitated, shared savings model. And I think CMS, to their credit, is working on multiple. I mean, it's 4 or 5 different initiatives that are announced. Not as much detail as I'd like, but I think that's definitely the trend. They're moving to be more aggressive on the fee-for-service price line item schedule, but they're opening up several new initiatives to sort of encourage physicians, yes, in ACO models, but also community workers and other kind of allied care people at different licensure levels that honestly is really needed. And so there's not enough detail, but I think it's commendable that CMS is working towards this more holistic approach to whatever, whole person care or lots of different providers providing care.
Right. Now, of course, this is a blow to the old school.
Yeah, it's a blow to the physician groups.
Yeah, to the physician groups and the physician business model, right? And that combined with the No Surprises Act, which at a dinner a couple of nights ago, a friend of mine referred to as the one piece that you pull out of the Jenga stack that makes the whole thing fall down.
Yeah.
This No Surprises Act has really been a massive blow, and in particular, this story is it's a Wall Street Journal Pro story in their bankruptcy category, but it's really sort of focusing on the private equity markets and all of the different PE-backed physician groups and related sort of ambulatory services and things like that have been pushed to bankruptcy. Really as a result of the No Surprises Act, which forced the payers and the providers to sort of renegotiate, and how really the providers, even though they have a method for going back and arguing and appealing, overall they're losing the claims denial battle, and it's pushing a lot of them to either downsize or totally go out of business.
Yeah, I think it is really hard on many private equity, lots of companies in this space that sort of relied on a certain reimbursement payment structure, and then the government has changed that with this rule. And I, in general, I'm not for government sort of stepping in and pushing new things out, but it's hard to argue with not sort of somehow making it much more difficult for no patient choice. I mean, I get in a car wreck and I'm airlifted somewhere. If that airlift group is not in my network, I have no choice over that. And then I get hit 3 months later with a huge bill. That's why it's called No Surprises. And it seems roughly good for the overall system, although it's really painful for these largely private equity groups that have invested around a certain reimbursement structure that then changed midstream. So it's in the bankruptcy area because a lot of these companies are going to be in risk of bankruptcy.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I mean, we've experienced it here in Nashville. I think Envision was probably the first big one. American Physician Partners came tumbling down after that. So this is
affecting HCA. I mean, HCA.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, talk about it. The JV and they
were basically forced to buy the other side of the partnership that they had, and it's really unprofitable. It's a drag on earnings.
Yeah, $100 million in the quarter it was stated.
Yeah, and then I think
it's $50 million
per quarter
for a year, right?
Yeah, that's
basically for a year.
Yeah.
So I mean, not anything that they won't work out.
Yeah, it's not that they can't sustain it, but $50 million is $50 million.
Yeah,
it's directly out of earnings.
That's right. And the fact that you can really kind of point to this No Surprises Act as the one piece of legislation that and regulation that really created the problem, right?
Right. Yes.
The inability to bill a patient when things don't work out between you and the insurer. Right. All right. So we will stop there and take a break from all of our healthcare talk to dive into the tech world and talk about the balance of power that is shifting. And we'll let Doug share a little bit about Jumpstart Foundry, and we will be right back.
Thanks, guys, for the opportunity to talk about our pre-seed fund, Jumpstart Foundry. My name is Doug Edwards, CEO of Jumpstart Health Investors, the parent company of Jumpstart Foundry. We're so excited to be able to talk about early stage venture investing, certainly the need for us to change the crazy world of healthcare in the United States. We are spending 20% of our GDP, north of $4 trillion a year on healthcare with suboptimal outcomes. Jumpstart Foundry exists to help us find and identify and invest in innovative companies that are going to make a difference in healthcare in our country. Every year, Jumpstart Foundry invests a fund, raises a fund, and deploys that across 30, 40, 50 assets every year, allowing ease of access for our limited partners to invest to help us make something better in healthcare. Some of the benefits of Jumpstart Foundry is there's no management fees. We deploy all the capital that's raised every year in the fund. We find the best and brightest, typically around single-digit percentage of companies that apply for funding from Jumpstart, and we invest in the most incredible, robust, innovative solutions and founders in the United States. Over the last 9 years, Jumpstart Foundry has invested in nearly 200 early stage, pre-seed stage companies in the country. Through those most innovative solutions the Jumpstart Foundry invests in, we also provide great returns and a great experience for our limited partners. We partner with AngelList to administer the fund, making that ease of access not only with low minimums, but the ease of investing in venture much better. We all know that healthcare is broken. Everyone deserves better. Come alongside us with Jumpstart Foundry, invest in making the future of healthcare better, and make something better in healthcare. Thank you, guys. Now back to the show.
All right. So I feel like we were relatively on top of the OpenAI stuff. You know, we talked about the dev day before the implosion, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We were talking about the dev day and how powerful the tools were.
And how we need to focus on AI.
Yeah. And the next week, Sam Altman was let go, and we can talk about why. But all of that,
it was that Friday. We recorded the show on Thursday,
and then he was
on
let go
Friday. He was let go.
Right.
Yes,
right.
That's right.
And so that then over Thanksgiving, so we recorded the next week and debriefed all of that. He was still out when we recorded for Thanksgiving. We recorded a little bit early, and then he got reinstated. Basically, the employees exerted their power over the board, which was really interesting. The board is sort of the governance authority of every company, and yet when 720 of the 780 employees threatened to walk out, all of a sudden the employees have a lot of say. And so he's been reinstated. They've redone the board, whole new board. And so we're kind of back to where we were a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, except there's now a lot of questions around what actually happened, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of questions about what will happen in the future. So
Yeah.
we're back to where we were, except for we're not back to where we were, right? I mean, where we were when you and I were recording the episode 2 days after Dev Day was this stuff is incredible.
They're going to knock over everyone.
They're going to run down everything, right? And I can tell you, I've talked to, several people who are at relatively big tech companies that are, looking at integrating, and they were almost entirely focused on OpenAI and ChatGPT. And in the week that followed Sam being displaced, they started looking hard at Bard. They started looking hard at Claude.
Yeah. I think you have to.
Yes, because they realized the concentration risk and the instability.
Yeah.
No pun on the AI tools, but the instability that could be present there, right? I mean, because honestly, this was kind of a shit show. I mean, really. I mean,
There's no question. There's no kind of anything. It was a complete shit show.
I mean, in terms of something that's valued at billions of dollars, I mean, the way it all went down was definitely junior varsity. I mean,
yeah, and it causes me, and I'm not everyone. We have other people to comment on that. Something caught their attention and they felt like they had to make a change with the most successful CEO who has raised billions of dollars and launched the best received product in the history of tech products. And they have not disclosed really anything about why that was. And so it just creates a lot of speculation about is there something that we should be nervous about, that society should be nervous about, that we don't know.
Yep.
And I think we may never know.
Yep. So let's just walk down this OpenAI path a little bit.
Yeah.
So, because everything happened so fast. So just 10 days ago, which I think was 2 days after Sam was let go or something, TED published a TED Talk of the chief scientist, Ilya Sutskever, who was at first on team kick Sam out and then apologized on X and was thankfully allowed to remain at OpenAI as Sam came back in and took back over.
Yeah. He was the credible tech lead advising the board when they let him go.
Yeah, and he's a co-founder of the company. He's a
Yes.
co-founder and the chief scientist. Like, let's be clear. Sam is not a like AI scientist.
Right.
He was a VC.
Right, exactly.
You know, Sam, like, for
He's
people,
not doing any coding.
No, for people who don't know Sam Altman was Paul Graham's successor for Y Combinator.
Right.
So he's a VC tech entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur, but
Yes.
he's not like a deep AI guy. This guy, Ilya, is a deep AI guy.
Right.
You can look 3 years ago and see Lex Fridman interviewing him, talking about where AI is and where it's going. So this guy is a deep AI guy. And the title of his TED Talk is The Exciting Perilous Journey Toward AGI. Again, AGI means artificial general intelligence. Right now we're in specific artificial intelligence, which is, it's got a very specific domain. It's only as smart as the data that you feed it. It can't sort of think like humans do broadly and about all things that it encounters from a place of consciousness. Whereas AGI is basically human consciousness in computer form.
It's human consciousness with extendable memory and power and reach.
Yes,
and
self-learning.
the ability to learn 24 hours a day and grow exponentially.
Yeah, that's the point at which the computer is better than us
In everything.
In everything.
Including at building its own code for the next release.
Right.
And first of all, TED Talks, they had perfect timing to drop this video. It was the ideal time.
Yeah.
Because one of the 4 most important names in the biggest story of the year, they had a TED Talk. It was about 30 days ago, but recent enough, and they hadn't published it yet, and they dropped it. And it's a well done talk. It's 12 minutes. It's not that long.
Yep.
And he does a really good job explaining it where, you know, my mom can understand. It's not super technical, and it's really well done.
And at about the 5-minute mark, he basically says about healthcare.
He gives one example.
He gives one example. He uses healthcare, and basically he says what Dr. Tarun Kapoor said on our show last week.
Yes.
Which is the medical knowledge is going to double in such a way that you're going to need to have, I mean, honestly, it was so shocking to me when I watched it, and then I was, you know, rewinding back to Tarun, and I was like, did Tarun like watch this? And like, is that where he got that example from?
I mean,
because he's making the point that at some point we're going to look back at the way that we currently deliver care, and we're going to think it's like, you know, back when they put leashes on George Washington, right? You know, it's going to seem crude and barbaric in the face of this computer that is going to be, you know, exponentially better than the human.
Yeah. So just people, everyone listening should take 12 minutes and watch it. But I think it's worthwhile to just emphasize that one of the top 5 AI scientists in the world chose one example to demonstrate how AGI could be beneficial. And he chose a medical doctor interaction to illustrate it.
He did not choose revenue cycle management.
No. He did not choose back office anything. And he is giving an optimistic view. But I mean, we have a lot of friends that are doctors and nurses and administrators and leaders, and healthcare is not as good as it needs to be. And having a computer that knows every part of my medical record and all of the research and can bring in different things that we should look at together is really compelling.
So go watch the video. But then one final note on this before we move on to Elon is on X, Mark Andreessen, who just as a reminder, we've covered Mark in the past. He's co-founder of Andreessen Horowitz, the creator of the Netscape browser. So he's been in the internet as long as there's been a World Wide Web.
His profile was a tech optimist. He is an investor and he's a developer. He's very tech friendly.
He wrote that whole manifesto, the tech the Tech Optimist Manifesto. We covered it, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 episodes back. So this is a guy who's 100% like accelerate.
He's all in on tech.
Yeah. Tech is all good. Anyone who says it's not good is lying. And he tweets, seriously though, what did Ilya see?
Right? That's the question everyone is asking.
Right.
And as usual, Mark is exactly on the sort of zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Right? He clearly saw something.
He saw something. Okay, moving to Elon. Elon was one of several really high-profile guests on the DealBook Summit. By the way, I think we're not quite acknowledging who might be the biggest star of this whole DealBook Summit. Elon Musk using the F-word fiasco, which is, in my book, Andrew Ross Sorkin. I mean, this guy was able to get Elon Musk and Kamala Harris on stage at his event. Like,
it's pretty good.
That's ridiculous. Okay. Anyway, back to the story. So Andrew Ross Sorkin is interviewing Elon Musk, and he gets to a point where he's talking about the advertisers fleeing the platform in the face of the recent anti-Semitism issues. And of course, Elon is on stage, days after meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu,
right.
On the matter. And so Elon, in what I think is at this point becoming typical Elon fashion, basically says, like, if you're going to boycott me with advertising, you're going to boycott me with money, go F yourself.
Right.
And then if anyone wasn't clear that he said that, he then repeated, go F yourself.
Right.
And then he said, hi, Bob, talking about the CEO of Disney.
I mean, there's so many things to talk about, but I think I want to get to the power dynamic in a minute, but I think I've never spoken to Elon. But I, obviously followed a bunch of stuff. I think he bought Twitter, now X, to try to protect free speech. And
well, that's what he says. So
that's what he claims.
That's what he claims.
So he claims. And the wonderful thing about free speech is people can say whatever they want to say. And the terrible thing about free speech is people will say whatever they want to say. I think of the choice of free speech or sort of someone sitting in a dark room deciding who gets to say what, free speech is better.
No question.
Now, is there a lot of damaging, hate, shitty stuff on social media? Yes.
Yeah.
But the alternative is worse.
Yes.
And so I think that's sort of the basic ethos that Elon goes with. But he also has more money than I have. So he has enough power then to say, like, you can't hold me hostage with advertising revenue. Go fuck yourself. And I don't think he's really bluffing. I think
he's definitely not bluffing.
Right.
He's definitely not bluffing. And I think that, the reason he's not bluffing is because he doesn't just have more money than everyone else. He's putting all the satellites in space.
Right.
He's powering the internet connectivity in wars.
Right. He's deciding what drones can fight the war and what drones can't.
Who cares about X?
Right.
This guy has legitimate geopolitical power. He's not just a rich guy. He's not Warren Buffett.
Right.
Like we're talking about something entirely different with him, and he is demonstrating that difference.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think the next couple of stories are really about the shifting power dynamic in our society. And Elon is symbolic, I think, of the technology, entrepreneurial power side. And he's been really successful in, I can't tell you how many there are, maybe 6 or 7 different high growth startups that he either was a founder in or early the first investor, including OpenAI, that now he's gotten sideways with. But he is one of maybe 10 people that is driving the future of our economy and society. And I think that's I don't know if it's good or bad. There's probably some aspects of both, but it kind of is.
Yeah, I mean, it is the point, and I think your point about the power dynamic is what we should focus on, and this even goes back to when you were talking about how the S&P and the NASDAQ indexes are so stacked with 8 or 9 companies, right? That make up 50, 60, 70% of the index, consolidated into 5, 6, 7 companies, and they all are really tech companies. This goes back to the Cigna Humana merger, right? This goes back to UHG, and what really makes UHG powerful? Optum. What is Optum? A tech and data company, right? And now we're accelerating what was already tech dominance with AI.
Yeah, and advertisers are used to, for 20 years, pushing media around. That is fraying. It's not over, but it's beginning to fray.
I think it's over.
It's ending. It's ending. The power has peaked already, but now it's still.
Seems like it ended yesterday. Seems like it ended when Elon said, "Go F yourself" to the advertisers of X. Yeah. I mean, literally,
X is independent, but there's a lot of TV that I see that is not fully independent. So there's other media that is still pushed around by advertising, but I think that's declining over time.
Yeah. I mean, we're watching that die, though.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the point. Right. We're watching that die, and especially if you stratify across generations,
yes,
it's already dead with Gen Z.
Yes,
no question about that. There is no advertising media business model that is powered by Gen Z. It's powered by us. It's powered by Gen X,
right,
and the Boomers, right? But
yeah, I think it
stratified across generations,
declines
it's over.
As you go younger.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes, it's over already, right? Okay, so then let's just talk about Elon's influence as an icon and as a cult of personality, right? So he does this. This gets everyone ginned up. I think maybe when I sent it to you, it wasn't like an official media.
It wasn't a news story.
It wasn't a news story.
Twitter post.
It was a tweet, right? Or
right.
next post or whatever you call these things, right? It was next post, and the post was celebrating him, right?
Yeah, right.
And celebrating him in language, by the way, calling him based, which is something I think most Gen Xers don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so it's hard to actually articulate what based is. It kind of came out of hip hop. There was a guy named. It was a little something, but he was the based god, and it basically is like you're so on your own individual. Like cool is more like what's accepted with other people.
It's more like you make cool.
You make cool. You create cool in ways that other people couldn't possibly even think about doing, right?
Yeah, like you're rebasing what it means to be cool.
Yes, exactly. That's the way to think about it. So Elon was being called the most based person of the day by what he was doing there, right? Yeah. And then,
but I don't know if we explained to people that are just listening. So people were posting on X canceling Disney Plus.
Yeah, no, we were about to get there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Elon being celebrated on X for the way that he told all the advertisers to go F themselves. Yep. So what do the X loyalists to Elon do?
How do they show their loyalty?
How do they show their loyalty and their appreciation for him doing that? They start canceling their Disney Plus subscriptions and putting screenshots. So now that's going to trend on X.
Right.
So
it's like it's a feedback loop. It's self-reinforcing too. Yeah.
And it's fast, right? I mean, remember, we just watched the bank run of SVB happen in record time because it all happened in group chats.
Right.
The speed with which things are changing, or with which, a backlash can totally drop the market cap of a company because we have a mass wave of subscriptions that just go away. All over what this guy says on stage, at a Wall Street Journal event.
Yeah.
Tell me how, as an analyst, you model the future when that is, when that's what's happening. When one day OpenAI has a dev day, 3 days later the CEO is fired by the board. A week later he's reinstated. Yeah. Microsoft is kind of in the mix. 4 days later Elon goes on stage at Wall Street Journal and says, "Go F yourself" to advertisers. The next day a bunch of people on X start quitting Disney Plus and turning it into a meme. Like, what world is this, dude? And I'm not saying like, it's so crazy, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, if you're not doing what we're doing, tracking this every single week,
it goes by too quickly.
It's going too fast.
Yeah.
It's going too fast.
That's right. And I mean, I think the advertisers made the first aggressive move, but they poked a bear that they shouldn't have poked.
Well,
right?
they did what they felt they needed to do in the moment based on the playbook that sort of was in place before.
Yeah.
But we're now seeing like there's a response to that playbook now that didn't previously exist. Before, if that happened to you, you would just have to like get on your knees and grovel and say, oh, I'm sorry. And we're not talking right or wrong here, by the way. We're not litigating. We're not the judge and jury of this. We're observing and we're retelling here.
Right. Right.
And previously, if you were called an anti-Semite and then all the advertisers left, you have to get on your knees and kind of grovel and say, I'm sorry, here's my apology letter, and then they probably make you like wait, 3 to 6 months. And then this guy got on stage and said, go F yourself.
Right.
I mean, that's a new response to the playbook. And that is, I don't know how you can get a clearer sense of the shifting power dynamics than that.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think podcasts and social media and X, honestly, are empowering individuals to have a voice. And if you begin to have smart things to say, or you say things that make me think differently, or I'll listen to the podcast, I don't necessarily need my media sort of curated by someone in Madison Avenue or whatever that's sort of issuing news articles and then putting banner ads around it. And that's started maybe with Facebook, but now it's just proliferated and huge. And Elon is probably the biggest profile like that.
So shifting to Google, there was a long running story about Google in Canada around the links to Canadian news and whether or not Google was profiting on them, and there's the whole summaries that they were showing on the homepage, and so they were fighting, and Google said, we're just going to pull the news from Canadian searches. That's what we're going to do. I think maybe Zuckerberg started this whole like, we'll just pull the news.
Yeah, he did in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. His response to like these different countries and continents saying you need to do this, you need to do that. He's just I'll just pull it.
Yeah,
And again, this is a show of the power.
It's power of tech and the social media or digital search as compared to a newspaper in Ottawa or whatever.
Yeah.
And the news media is losing.
Well, the news media is losing, but I think the bigger thing is I think the nation states are losing. That's the bigger thing. The nation states are losing.
Yes, Canada, the nation state of Canada, which I don't know, it's a top 20 country.
Yeah.
They tried to protect their homegrown news organizations, and they don't have the ability to do that.
They can't protect them.
They don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
The Magnificent Seven, Google and Microsoft, Apple, whatever.
Amazon, Meta.
They have more power than nation states, except the United States.
Yep. And China.
And China. And the thing that they don't have is military.
Right.
And what's interesting about X is Musk has the satellites.
Yep.
And so a lot of nation states are going to need the satellites, and you can't really get internet service in some places. It just the balance of power is shifting.
They're running their military on their networks.
Right. Exactly. So you can just like unplug it, and then the military drones don't work. So it's a balance of power thing that is interesting.
Yeah, and then the final story we want to just tell around all this tech stuff is that the tech giants are finishing the year how they started the year, which is with layoffs. They did big ones, right? 7% across the board. Mm-hmm. Every big tech company did 7% in Q1. But even as they have readied and steadied the ship, and they're profitable and they're growing and the stock is performing well.
Record highs.
Meta, unbelievable, right? They're still cutting.
Yeah.
They're still cutting.
Right. So it is tech and leaders in tech gaining power over nation states, over their customers, advertisers. But even the workers at these technology companies are losing power because these companies now have automation and AI and technology, and they rely on the broad-based team less than they have in the past. That's counterbalanced a little bit with the OpenAI employee walkout.
Well, what kind of employees? I mean, let's be clear. I mean, if you're on the AI team, I think you're okay.
Right. Yes. If you're a large language model AI developer,
you're worth like 30 regular employees.
Right. Yes. But they don't need as many people. I mean, so I was at Thanksgiving and someone asked me like what the effect AI is going to have. And I need to be careful because it's a Thanksgiving dinner. But I think that something like half the jobs that exist today aren't going to be here in 10 years.
Oh, dude. I know. Listen.
And like we have to figure out what else people are going to do.
It is so hard to have that perspective and try to have conversations about it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do it, And we're not driving it, so we're just trying to.
No, I'm just trying to like keep up myself.
Yeah,
and invest in the right things in healthcare.
Yeah. All right. So just to kind of change topics for the end of the show, a positive story in the Wall Street Journal talking about how CRISPR is poised to win FDA approval next month. Not CRISPR itself, but a treatment that's based on CRISPR. This is going to. It's a health equity story, actually, because, we're going to finally be addressing sickle cell disease, which is something that has forever been underinvested in, misunderstood for a million reasons. Mm-hmm. And, we're about to leverage DNA editing technology to cure it. Now, of course, the parallel sort of problem with that is going to be the cost. And also who is going to qualify for this, right? So, just for anyone who doesn't understand how sickle cell works, it's basically a mutation of the cell, the red blood cell, that was designed to protect against malaria in Africa, but then sort of had an extra adaptation that results in blood clots and all sorts of other really, negative. It's just comorbid with a lot of things.
Yeah, it was selected for by evolution.
Yes,
for people in Africa.
Yes, to protect against malaria, but it has adapted to become sort of a just a really, really devastating disease. People do die from it, and even when they're not dying, they have chronic diseases, just like your typical autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
But
just because of the DNA heritage, it affects Black populations.
That's right.
Almost exclusively.
I've never heard of a white person having sickle cell. So say all that to say, it's been one of those areas in the Black community where we have felt just unattended to. As here's a Black disease that nobody wants to do anything about, and now we have this state of the art technology, this CRISPR technology is coming in with finally a solution for it. But again, the cost, right? This is likely going to be, $1 million solution because it's going to cure you.
It is a one-time change your genes such that your red blood cells do not have this mutation anymore.
Right.
And then thereafter, you formerly had sickle cell, but you no longer have sickle cell.
That's right.
And first of all, that's just incredibly positive for people that get the treatment.
It's amazing.
I think we have to fund it, period. We have to fund it. Now, our healthcare system is not designed for, cures are hard to finance because it's a one-time thing. And whatever insurance group I'm on today, I guess has to bear all that cost. But then I'm much less expensive for all the insurance companies later. So the basic structure of how we provision care is not well designed for this. But I don't think that matters. We have to figure out a way to get it done.
But again, you want to talk about an entire business model that on one end is flanked by AI and on the other end is flanked by gene editing. The physician. This to me is really becoming the nexus of disruption, right? Whether it's the No Surprises Act, whether it's the decrease in the physician fees, whether it's the advent of new AI that everyone is predicting is going to end up being better than a physician in 5-10 years, when it comes to, understanding all the medical knowledge and being able to actually diagnose, or whether it's, should we have you, the physician, caring for this person for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and prescribing all sorts of small molecule, solutions that really are only just somewhat mitigating, the issue, but not actually curing it, versus gene editing and just cure them. Period. Done. It's over. You're not sick anymore. On all ends, it feels to me like the physician is really being flanked.
Well, I guess so. I have a more optimistic view of it. I think that there's going to be a long time where I still will value having a human with empathy help me navigate this. But that doctor or nurse or caregiver should have all of these AI tools and be able to sort of help me navigate it empowered by those things, including gene editing. And I think if I cure some aspect of my health, the normal human reaction in my mind is, what's the next thing that I should work on? It's not like I'm going to say I don't have sickle cell anemia anymore, so I never have to worry about my health. I take an optimistic view that there'll be a role for empathetic caregivers to advise and help people live healthier lives, but they have to adopt and learn all of these technologies, and our industry is not designed that way right now. So there's a big change. Big change. And doctors are right there at the forefront of it.
Right. And don't doctors love to change?
Yeah, they're not gonna like changing.
So that's my point. Point. Like, I can agree with you and align with you on the optimistic take for the doctor of the future. For the doc, I talked to an MD MBA today. Like, he is gonna love this new world. You know what I mean? He's going to love to provide care in this new world.
Yeah, if you've been practicing for no time or less than 5 years, you can change easily.
Totally. It's value-based. You're leveraging technology. You're able to actually,
I can help
people for real.
500 people now, not 50.
I don't have to worry about my own dumb brain because the AI is going to make a better decision than I am, 9 out of 10 times. Like, he's going to love it. But 50-year-old doc?
Yeah, with a lot of debt, and they did everything right.
Hold on. And identity.
Yeah.
Wrapped up in how they deliver things. Like, I just think, again, dislocation and disruption. It doesn't mean physicians are going away. I'm just saying they are the nexus of a lot of disruption. That's the point I'm making.
That's right. And they're going to go from, in the 70s and 80s, the top of the social status, smartest, wealthiest, most well-regarded profession in the world. And they're going to have to change every way they practice medicine. And that is going to be very difficult.
I think that's right.
But we're not going backwards.
No.
And I think there's going to be a lot of disruption, a lot of change, but it's going to be better to cure sickle cell. So it's better. It's better.
It's amazing.
And I think this is the first CRISPR-related cure. It's not quite approved yet, but it's about to be approved by the FDA. It got approved in UK. But I think there's a lot of other things that are in the pipeline. And we talked about AlphaFold and the protein folding. And so we're now sort of building all of these tools that are going to allow us to see what needs to be changed. And then we have the technology to go in and okay, let's change those 3 base pairs. And all of a sudden you're cured now.
Yep.
Which is great and positive. And there'll be massive disruption, but I think that it'll also be good.
By the way, Walter Isaacson, who wrote the Steve Jobs book and wrote the Elon Musk book, I believe he also wrote a book on Jennifer Doudna.
Yes, he did.
And so, we just want to kind of give a shout out to Jennifer Doudna, whose name does not get enough recognition for the unbelievable Nobel Prize winning breakthrough of CRISPR. But that's an audio book that I have in my queue.
Yeah, and I haven't read it yet either, but she's a very successful woman in science that won the Nobel Prize and a great role model for everyone, but for women especially, to see you can succeed. And she's making a huge impact on the world.
It's changing the world.
Yes.
I mean, CRISPR is going to change the world. So, all right, that's it. Another show in the books. Anything else to cover?
No, I don't think so. We'll see what happens next week. A lot going on in the world.
Look forward to it. Talk to you then.
Bye.